Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، وصلى الله على سيد الأولين والآخرين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear viewers, welcome to another live edition of your program Ask Huda. Our phone numbers beginning with the area code are 002-023855, 131 or 132. The Facebook page is Dr. Muhammad Salah Official, and I believe we have some callers on the line. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Salman from Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Sheikh.
How are you, sister?
Alhamdulillah, I am fine. How are you?
Wonderful. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for asking. May Allah bless you and your family.
Ameen. Sheikh, I have one question. That we have a marriage proposal for our daughter, but I have come to know through while talking to her mother that this boy does not pray regularly. I mean, he prays sometimes not, and sometimes on Fridays only. So I want to know, should we consider this proposal?
Okay. Thank you, Salman. Barakallahu feek. You know, to trust me with a question like that is such a great honor. May Allah the Almighty enable me to deliver the right answer. In the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, whenever somebody proposes to your girl, your daughter or a girl who's under your guardianship, whom you trust, two things: his religious commitment and his honesty. Then give him your daughter in marriage. So as we look for a righteous and a religious girl, bride, we should also look for our daughter for a religiously committed person. And as-salah, the namaz or the prayer, is the most essential pillar of Islam. The person could be poor, so he doesn't have to pay zakah. The person also, due to poverty, doesn't have to perform hajj. But no one is exempt from offering the prayer. If the person is not regular in his prayer, this is very problematic, because you never know what will happen after marriage. Only if the person straightened up and he started praying regularly, we should confront him with this fact, that I heard that you do not pray regular, and I'm not going to give my daughter to somebody who will slow her down from the ibadah. If the person doesn't have a commitment with his Creator, then he would not have any commitment with anyone else. The person respects and loves his wife because of loving Allah and fearing Allah and keeping his promise with Allah the Almighty. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Istawsu bin nisa'i khayra." He advised us to be kind, gentle, and good to our wives. And he said, فَإِنَّكُمْ أَخَذْتُمُوهُنَّ بِأَمَانِ اللَّهِ بِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ بِكَلِمَةِ اللَّهِ. Because they have become your wives by the word of Allah. So he reminded us that we should be kind to our wives because of that word that we gave before Allah the Almighty. If the person doesn't have this commitment, if the person is not regular in his prayer, what about the rest of the ibadat? If the person is not regular in answering the call of Allah the Almighty to pray, then what will happen when he is offered a job to work in a conventional bank or here or there where the earning is haram? He will not hesitate to accept it. So offering the prayer on regular basis is a sign that the person is religiously committed. The person loves Allah the Almighty. I cannot imagine a person who is righteous and he doesn't pray on a regular basis. Can never imagine a person who claims to be righteous and he doesn't even pray the nawafil before and after the prayers. So have a meeting with him and tell him point blank, this is the only reason that we are reluctant to give you our daughter in marriage. And see if the person is willing to fix this error and start praying regularly, and put him under, I would say, your supervision to see also how he deals with others, because the person's relationship with Allah the Almighty is the most important relationship, which determines how does he deal with others. May Allah guide all of us, you and us, to what is best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Asia from the KSA.
Walaikum salam rahmatullahi barakatuh.
Welcome to the program, Sister Asia.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, I just wanted to share. I'm feeling shy to ask, but I just want advice. Usually, alhamdulillah, I start my Quran in Ramadan with the meanings. But because I read the tafsir also and meaning also, unfortunately, by the end of the Ramadan, I could not complete it. So every time it happens like this. Now I am feeling, shall I stop reading meaning and tafsir and just go on for recitation of Quran so that I will complete it? Or shall I continue the pattern what I am doing? Please advise me. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Sister Asia. The month of Ramadan is such a great month because of the following reason. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah the Almighty said, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. That is the most diagnostic feature, the greatest thing about the month of Ramadan, because the revelation of the Quran started and began on this month. So it is known that شهر Ramadan is a month of the Quran. When we examine the history of the companions, the predecessors, we will realize that they used even to stop the ta'aleem and the classes and focus only on the recitation of the Quran. Whether they have, because they have memorized the Quran, they read it by heart, they read it from the Quran, they read it in the prayer during the tahajjud and the night prayer, but it is exclusively the month of the Quran. So if you ask my advice, you have 11 months to study the meaning of the Quran and to learn the grammatical differences in the different verses of the Quran and the meaning of this word and its derivatives. You have 11 months to do that. But the month of the Quran, divide your day as follows. That today I need to finish the many paras, 1, 2, or 3 on daily basis. How are you going to recite them? One para, or have para after Salatul Fajr, and another before Dhuhr or after Dhuhr, and perhaps between Asr and Maghrib you will be cooking, so maybe like a half hour before Asr I will recite another para. I mean, you finish your sabaq or your word, the part that you decided to recite, even without really knowing in depth the meaning of that. Read it in Arabic, in the same word, in the same language it was revealed. As much as you can recite Quran during Ramadan. Then also in the Taraweeh you will be listening to the Quran, and while you're cooking, while you're doing your homework, play the Quran in the background. And while playing the Quran, Darus Salam, may Allah bless them, Darus Salam publication, they have the Holy Quran, the recitation, and also each ayah is followed by the English meaning, and I bet you there will be also the Urdu meaning, so you can learn that through the audio while you're doing the physical activities or the physical work at home. But if you ask my advice, devote your time in Ramadan for the recitation of the Quran, because it is the month of the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Abdul Rahman from the KSA.
I have a question regarding the current social climate that we have in Western countries. It happens that I get approached by a man that's become a woman, or a man that's dressed like a woman, and I think sometimes they feel like they come and try to shake hands with me just to test me, to see if I will shake. And sometimes I really cannot tell. And in this case, what do I do? Do I shake hands with this person who has become a female? And if I don't shake hands, then I feel like it will become what if this person is finding out information about Islam and I reject shaking hands with this woman who used to be a man, and that person leaves, becomes, I don't know, leaves in asking about Islam. So in both situations, what is the ruling? Jazakallah khair.
وجزاكم. Thank you, Sister Abdul Rahman. First of all, practicing the religious guidance is never a means of repelling people or warding off people from the deen of Allah the Almighty. The Prophet ﷺ never ever shook hands with a woman who is not lawful for him. And there are many ahadith narrated in this regard, to the point that whenever he was accepting the Pledge of Allegiance from women, it was verbal. While when it came to men, he shook hands with each one of them, and he gave them and accepted the Pledge of Allegiance from them by shaking hands. So that is something, it's already sorted out, and I guess you already know the ruling. A person who decided to change his gender has not in fact changed his gender. By the end, he is still a man. Even if he dresses like a woman and he behaves like a woman, talks like a woman, even if he grows chest and administers certain hormones to appear like a woman, but we all know that this person is in the body of a man. So in this case, you will treat him like that. And as if you will not shake hands with me because I'm totally stranger to you, I'm neither your husband nor your brother or uncle or any of the maharim, you will treat this person like that. And don't worry about the consequence, that you deliver the message as Allah the Almighty ordered us, not as we assume or as we think. By doing so, that is the best way to inform people about our deen. We've come across many circumstances like that, where you'll be given a lecture and sometimes you will feel embarrassed because these women maybe they want to hug you, they want to give you thank you, appreciation by hugging you, sometimes even kissing you on the cheek. I wouldn't do that. Oh, but this way you will ward them off and you will put them off, and it's like you're offending them. Well, when I explain my religious perspective, people should respect what I believe and should deal with me accordingly. Thank you, Sister Abdul Rahman. Brother Muhammad from United Arab Emirates, last episode asked about Dua al-Qunut in the witr prayer and whether it is obligatory or voluntary. Akhi Muhammad, the witr prayer itself is not obligatory. The entire witr prayer is an emphatic sunnah. It is not obligatory. What is the reference to that? When this Bedouin came to the Prophet ﷺ in the sound hadith and he said, "Oh Muhammad, just inform me about what Allah has ordained upon me. What does Allah want me to do?" So he said, 5 daily prayers, إِلَّا أَن تَطَوَّعْ. Just pray 5 times a day, unless if you want to give tatawwa', voluntary prayers. Then he dealt with the rest of the acts of worship likewise. So the Prophet ﷺ said, what is mandatory is the 5 daily prayers. And in the hadith of Bunya al-Islamu ala khams, the establishing the 5 daily prayers is what is mandatory. Any prayer other than that is sunnah. Some of these nawafil are emphatic and some are non-emphatic. Some are highly recommended, such as the 2 rak'ahs before Fajr, the witr prayer, highly emphatic. The Prophet ﷺ put a lot of emphasis on that. So it is in the category of nafila still. It is highly important, highly recommended. In the hadith of Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, he narrated that Awsani Khalili bi-thalath, my best companion, peace be upon him, advised me to fulfill the following 3 things. And he mentioned to pray the duha and to fast 3 days of every month, and not to sleep before offering the witr prayer. وَأَنْ أُوتِرَ قَبْلَ أَنْ أَنَامَ. So we learned that the witr prayer is not a wajib, according to the vast majority of the scholars. But it is highly recommended and it is an emphatic sunnah. So the witr in the qunut, and al-qunut means to make supplication or dua. in the witr prayer itself varies between the sunnah and the permissibility. For instance, you have some scholars, such as in the Maliki school of thought, they said it is not recommended, rather it is disliked to make qunut in the witr prayer, other than, for instance, during the month of Ramadan, and some say only in the last part of Ramadan. But according to the vast majority of the scholars, and that is also in the Hanafi school of thought, in the Shafi'i school of thought, and according to Imam Ahmad, may Allah have mercy on him, that it is sunnah to recite the witr and to recite the qunut, the dua in the witr prayer, whether before making ruku', yani after you recite al-Fatiha, and if the last rak'ah in the 3 rak'ahs or the 5 rak'ahs you recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, then before making ruku', you raise your hands and you recite the dua, which is narrated by by many of the scholars. The hadith of Al-Hasan ibn Ali, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, when he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught me some words to recite in the qunut of the witr. Then he said, Allahumma hadini fi man hadayt, wa afini fi man afayt, wa tawallani fi man tawallayt, وبارك لي فيما أعطيت وقني واصرف عني شر ما قضيت. The very famous supplication, which normally the Imam recites in the witr prayer in Ramadan, so many people have memorized it from him. This is the what is recommended to be recited in the witr prayer, whether before ruku' or after ruku'. And both have been observed by the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, so that should not be a point of difference. And that also entails, if the person did not recite the qunut in the witr prayer is valid. Does he have to offer sujood sahu for forgetting, for instance, the qunut in the witr prayer? No, he doesn't have to, because we mentioned the difference of opinion with regards to the qunut in the witr prayer. The bottom line and the summary is al-qunut, reciting the dua in the witr prayer, whether before ruku' or after ruku', is sunnah according to the vast majority of the scholars. And Allah the Almighty knows best. We have another question from Arfan. In last episode, he asked about how to perform sujood as-sahu. We said sujood as-sahu is the prostrations for forgetfulness, to make up that whatever you forgot in the prayer. Sometimes you may forget a sunnah, and sometimes you may forget a pillar or a rukn in the prayer. So if you forget a pillar, like one sajda, or if you forget the ruku' in any of the units, you will either have to go back to do it if you did not reach to the same point of the following rak'ah. Then by the end you pray the 2 prostrations for forgetfulness. Or if you already prayed the next rak'ah, then you remembered later after passing this point, let's say you forgot ruku', or you forgot one sajda, and you already prayed the following rak'ah, and you made sujood. In this case, you don't go back. Rather, you will delete this rak'ah entirely, the unit in which you forgot one sajda, and you will make it up. You will pray a whole rak'ah, recitation in the standing, ruku' and 2 prostrations. Then afterward, you will pray the 2 prostrations for forgetfulness. Sometimes forgetfulness will be due to praying extra, and sometimes will be due to missing something in the prayer. And both circumstances have been experienced by the companions with the Prophet ﷺ. So once he prayed only 2 rak'ahs and he made taslim, and once he prayed 5 rak'ahs. The companions initially were reluctant to alert the Prophet ﷺ because they have always assumed that maybe there have been some sort of abrogation. So let's wait until we learn. Then when the Prophet ﷺ had been informed, he prayed. If he was missing something in the prayer, he prayed it. Then he prayed sujood as-sahw. They say, and this is what the scholars suggested, that if it is something by minus, then you pray sujood as-sahw before making taslim and after reciting tashahhud. If you have prayed something extra and you are alerted, then you pray sujood as-sahw after you make taslim. what happens here, brothers and sisters, if you switch, sujood al-sahw is valid as well. I mean, not everybody knows when exactly to pray the two prostrations for forgetfulness, before taslim or after taslim. So these fine details won't hurt. If you pray sajdatay sahw, the two prostrations for forgetfulness, before making salam or after making salam, that is sufficient. And may Allah the Almighty accept and guide us to what is best. This is a part which every ordinary Muslim should know, because I've come across a lot of people, which led me to ask this question in some gatherings: what would you do if you forget something in the prayer? Sometimes whenever we come to perform Hajj, and I see a lot of educated people, a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, and people coming from very prestigious background, I just want to see how much they know about the deen and raise the awareness of learning their deen in their minds and hearts in these sacred places, in Mina, in Arafah, in Muzdalifah. So a lot of people say simply, I would repeat the prayer. I will call it off and I will start again. Why? The learning about sujood al-sahw would not take more than 5 minutes from your very precious time, because it is not up to you to say, I will call it off and I will start again. So the Prophet ﷺ prescribed sujood al-sahw to make up the shortcoming that happened in the prayer, as I explained earlier. Assalamu alaikum. Noor from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening, Sheikh. How are you doing?
Good evening to you, brother Noor. I'm fine, alhamdulillah, shukrillah.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions to ask. My first question is concerning Nafil. Nafil prayer, the rawatib that we normally pray before, after the Fajr prayers.
No,
so how many are there?
in fact, Noor, I didn't get a word of what you said. Your voice is breaking off. Perhaps if you can slow down a little bit, I'll be able to understand you.
Okay. My question is concerning Nafila prayer.
Okay.
Okay. So there are a set of prayers, I think, that are called rawatib, I think.
Yeah.
So I want to know when we pray them, like before Zuhur, after, before Asr. One is after Maghrib, I think. So I want to know how many are they, and when we normally pray them.
Okay.
And my second question is concerning like reciting the Quran inside the toilet, like in your heart, not outside, not pronouncing it. Like when you recite it inside the toilet, or you have it on your phone. Is it okay if I have the app on my phone, open it inside the toilet?
Okay.
Yes, I think those are my two questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Noor from Nigeria. Noor's first question is about the Nafila prayer, and he asked particularly about what is known as al-rawatib. What is it, and when to offer them, before or after? In the sound hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever observes 12 rak'ahs on daily basis, Allah will build him a house in paradise. This hadith was narrated once by Habiba and Aisha radiallahu anha in another hadith, which she explained what the Prophet ﷺ said, when to offer the 12 rak'ahs. So in the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that she began by saying 4 rak'ahs before dhuhr, 2 by 2. That's ratiba. Ratiba yani highly emphasized. This is what we call it mu'akkada, emphatic, confirmed. 4 rak'ahs before dhuhr and 2 after dhuhr. So that is 6 rak'ahs. And 2 after maghrib. Now total is 8. And 2 after isha. Total is 10. And 2 before salatul fajr. So now we're talking about 12 rak'ahs. There are some ahadith which talk only about 10 rak'ahs, like if you make only 2 before dhuhr. There are some other ahadith talk about whoever will pray 4 rak'ahs before dhuhr and 4 after dhuhr, the fire of hell will never touch their flesh. So it varies between 10 to 14 rak'ahs. The confirmed ahadith and the sound ahadith talk about if you pray the 12 rak'ahs on daily basis, unless if you're traveling, if you're sick, if you have some excuses, so you skip them occasionally, not most of the time or sometimes. Rather, most of the time you pray those 12 rak'ahs, Allah the Almighty will build your house in paradise. Those are the rawatib prayers. With regards to the recitation of the Quran by the heart, that will be after we take a short break, inshallah. Please stay tuned.
Muhammad, the most common name in the world. Why were so many parents interested and still are interested in naming the children Muhammad? What are examples of his love, his compassion, his mercy, his dedication, his sincerity, his bravery? How did he balance between private life and the public sphere of life? Why is he known as the greatest mercy sent to humankind? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Join us as we learn more about the balanced and beautiful personality of perfection.
This is the Deen Show. 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 This is the Deen Show.
So from that, I've really come to understand that to be a Muslim, to be someone who says they've surrendered and submitted to the will of God, is to be in harmony with everything around you and to be a benefit to everything.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Creator, He gave us a life plan. He told us what to do. He gave us, goals and what He expects from us.
It has roots in Islam because the first man who was created, Adam, he was neither a Jew or a Christian, but he submitted himself to God. Abraham, he didn't submit to anyone in creation. He didn't even hear in any of these religions. But when he was told to do what? Submit to the will of God. That's Islam.
Attached to his preconceived notions. Yes. And if he looks with an objective eye and an open heart, he'll see it. Unless Allah for some reason has something over his eyes because of something that we don't know is in his heart.
You had from 1980 to 2005, you had the FBI data report showing that now from all these years that only 6% had any links to Islam. 94% were people who had nothing to do with Islam.
Robber, a thief, very famous at his time. He was in love with one girl and he had the habit of sneaking into her house some way and watching her, observing her for some time. And in night, he would go and attack caravans, Hajj caravans, travelers, and he would strip them of their property and their wealth and their belongings. He was notorious to the extent that a lot of the caravans most of the time would change route to avoid that area. One night he climbs up the wall of the house of that girl that he loves. And he sneaks into the house, and as he was making his way into the house, someone was praying Qiyam al-Layl. Someone was standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and praying at night alone, reciting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Hasn't the time come yet for the believers that their hearts pay heed and feel humility to the words of Allah? Hasn't that time come yet? And the words shook him and grabbed his heart, and he was moved deep inside. It hit a chord. He started thinking about these words and he forgot the main reason why he came to this house. And the only response that was on his tongue, his spontaneous response was, Bala ya Rabbi qad an. Indeed, my Lord, the time has come. And that moment he changed. So he went out of his house, roaming aimlessly, contemplating his life, contemplating his past, his behavior, his reputation, and his future, and his relationship with Allah. He ended up.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. A quick reminder with our phone numbers: area code 002, then 0238555131 or 132. Brother Noor from Nigeria asked earlier about reciting the Quran by the heart without pronouncing the letters, and would that count as a recitation? In brief, no, it won't count as a recitation. Al-Imam Malik, may Allah have mercy on him, was asked about making dhikr by the heart or reciting Quran by the heart without moving the tongue and the lips. He said that's not called a recitation. Don't you see that if a person in the prayer recited the Fatiha by his heart without moving his tongue, that his prayer will be invalid? So the person may ponder over the verses of the Quran by the heart. Understand that a dhikr has three categories. A person may do dhikr, which includes the recitation of the Quran by the tongue only or by the heart only. And the best dhikr is the dhikr or the recitation which you involve the tongue, the heart, and the body parts or the limbs. How would this be achieved? So you're reciting and you're pondering over what you're reciting. You're stating khushu' and sukoon by your body parts. You're not playing around. كتاب أنزلناه إليك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب, Surah Sad. The book of the Quran that we revealed it unto you and we sent it down unto you, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, in order for them to ponder over its verses, and the people, men of understanding, will take heed, will pay heed and comprehend its meaning. So what is required is to have your entire person, body, heart, and tongue involved in the recitation. And whether you have to raise your voice or not, as long as you can hear yourself, that is sufficient. So whatever is considered a prayer, whatever is considered valid as a recitation in the prayer is considered valid as a recitation outside the prayer. That's why it won't be sufficient to look into the Quranic verses and read it by your eyes and by your heart alone. Verse number 29 of Surah Sad: كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Al-Amin from Gambia. Okay, please try again, Brother Al-Amin. I have noticed that's, a couple times before we had Noor, then Al-Amin. Banhur, and I have really hard time pronouncing the last name. So Banhur says, if I learn a dua that is in Arabic, which is for one individual, for singular, can I use it if me and my wife are together making dua? That's a very interesting question. You know that if you're making dua in congregation, you're not supposed to single out yourself by making dua. Like a person who's given a khutbah and he's concluded the khutbah by making dua, you shouldn't say, "Oh Allah, bless me. Oh Allah, forgive me my sins," because there is a crowd who will say Ameen, and what about us? Okay, and in the qunut, in the witr prayer, similarly. I just recited the hadith which has been narrated by Al-Hasan ibn Ali, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, how the Prophet ﷺ, his grandfather, taught him what to say in the qunut. Allahumma hdini fi man hadayt. Oh Allah, guide me amongst those who you have guided. وعافني فيمن عافيت وتولاني فيمن توليت. The form of these invocations is all in the singular, the first person, the pronoun of the first person. اهدني, عافني, guide me, protect me, pardon me. Okay? So if you're praying by yourself, that is fine. But if you're making dua and others are sitting around you and saying Ameen, then you should recite the dua in plural, so that you include all of those who are attending. Okay? I'm glad that you learn how to make certain dua in Arabic, but it won't hurt you to add to that how to make the pronoun from singular to plural. So it will be Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt. It's a common error, even some of the Arabic speaker people do. As they're teaching people how to make dua, then say, Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta, and the audience keeps saying, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. But he's only praying for himself, and this is not befitting, this is not proper. He should rather recite the dua in the plural. Allahumma anta rabbuna la ilaha illa anta khalaqtana wa nahnu abiduk wa nahnu ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'na. Okay? Similarly, the rest of these supplications. Banhur also says, Insha'Allah, we're planning to fast the 15th of Sha'ban, but that if my wife can hold it fully due to her pregnancy, if only I can fast in this case, hope Insha'Allah she will be able to manage. Well, basically, Brother Banhur, now I know it's a brother because he's asking about him and his wife planning to fast on the 15th of Sha'ban. Okay, what happens is, we said there is no specific preference to a specific act of worship to be done on that day, on that night. We're holding this view over and over and over. Maybe 2 days ago I posted a little clip which I filmed with my phone about one virtue narrated in a hadith which is authenticated by Sheikh al-Albani, by Shu'aib al-Arnaut, and by others, with regards to the night of the middle of Sha'ban, in which it has been narrated by many companions, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and others, that Allah the Almighty يَطَّلِعُ عَلَى خَلْقِهِ, He looks at His servants on the night of the 15th of Sha'ban, and He forgives all of them except a mushrik or a mushahin. And the last episode of the last week of Ask Huda, I think Sister Sally asked about this hadith, and I said who authenticated this hadith. So it's, by some of the scholars it is considered as sound, and by others is considered as hasan or da'if. So the message was, we need to purify our hearts. We need to forgive one another in order to be forgiven. We need to remove any hatred, any animosity from our hearts, because the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will forgive all His servants except a mushrik or a mushahin. A mushahin is a person who has rancor in his heart towards others, hatred, envy, and animosity towards others of his Muslim brothers and sisters. So I reminded myself and others that we should clear up our hearts and purify our hearts and forgive others in order to be forgiven. Some people jump into conclusions and they say, so you're saying that there is a specific dua on the day, on that night? The video, which is maybe 1.5 minutes, doesn't say anything about that. We have many videos over the past 11 years saying that there is no specific worship. There is no prescribed ibadah or certain number of rak'ahs or a specific supplication, neither on the day or the night of the middle of Sha'ban. Furthermore, we clarified repeatedly that there are some fabricated ahadith, not just weak, with regards to the virtues of the night of Sha'ban. It is the night on which Allah, the Almighty, decrees the decree of His creation throughout the rest of the year. And we said that contradicts the Quran, because Allah the Almighty spoke about فيها يفرق كل أمر حكيم. That is concerning Laylatul Qadr. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة مباركة, Surah Al-Dukhan. That is the night on which Allah the Almighty reveals to His angels the decrees of His servants for the whole year round, not on any other night. And similarly, in Surah Al-Qadr, إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر. So, this should be very clear. There is no specific worship. There is no prescribed congregational worship on this night. If a person has a tradition of praying at night, at any night, so he prayed on that night, may Allah bless you. If a person follows the hadith of Abu Hurairah, which I quoted earlier, that أوصاني خليلي بثلاث, and the virtues of fasting the 3 wide days, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And by the way, in many countries today was the 15th, which means last night was the 15th night. And in some countries, according to their own moon citation and calculation, today is the 14th and tomorrow will be the 15th. So tonight is the night of the 15th of Sha'ban. There is no specific fasting or prescribed specific worship, unless if the person fasts regularly 13th, 14th, and 15th of every lunar month. So he does fast that too on Sha'ban. May Allah bless you. And in Sha'ban, the Prophet ﷺ used to fast more than in any other month other than the month apart from the month of Ramadan, of course, because the month of Ramadan is obligatory and the Prophet ﷺ used to fast the entire month. But Sha'ban, it was a month on which he would fast more than any other month. When he was asked, he said, because it's a month that falls between Rajab, which is a sacred month, and the month of Ramadan, where most people are negligent of. And there are many ahadith talking about the ibadah during negligence, when people are negligent, when people do not pay attention. So the Prophet ﷺ used to fast during this month for this reason. In addition to, it is a preparation for the month of Ramadan. Unlike what some of the scholars said, that it is like the ratibah before the prayer. Earlier Noor asked about the rawatib, the emphatic sunnah, fasting, praying before the fard prayer. So Sha'ban is resembled to the ratibah before Ramadan. I hope this message is clear. So brother, if you're fasting on the middle of Sha'ban because of a specific event, you have to understand that there is no specific fasting on the day other than what the Prophet ﷺ used to do on every lunar month, fasting, voluntary fasting on the 13th, 14th, and the 15th of every lunar month. And that is narrated in many ahadith. I just got another question. I didn't even pay attention to it before. Munzir Majid says, what is the ruling on fasting on the 15th of Sha'ban and reciting Surah Yasin on the night before? So I guess the answer is already delivered earlier. There is no specific recitation. If you recite Surah Yasin at any time, as long as you are in a state of tahara from major impurity, it is permissible. But it is not permitted to specify a special night or a special day or a special time by a special recitation other than what the Prophet ﷺ said. In the hadith, which is authenticated by many, that the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf on Friday and recites it on the following Friday, a light will shine for him from beneath his feet until the heavens, all the way to the heavens, until the next Friday. So that's why we say, go ahead and recite Surah Al-Kahf, okay, on Friday or on the night before. At sunset on Thursday, that is the night of Friday. But to say there is, we have to recite the surah on the middle of Sha'ban, please, please provide a reference. The Prophet ﷺ said, follow and do not innovate. Also amongst the messages that I got, some of the comments were very weird, such as that, well, then you're supporting those who are celebrating the middle of Sha'ban in Pakistan. Do you think that we should conceal knowledge or hide a hadith or a virtue? Because some people confuse the issues and use this in order to make an innovation, so that we should not share with the viewers, or share with the people the reality of this hadith and who authenticated this hadith and who did not. No. Rather, it is our duty. I don't care what other people do. We tell them what is right and what is wrong. And this is the sunnah versus the bid'ah. But please do not jump into conclusion and read the message fully or watch the message fully. It's only 1.5 minutes, maybe a few seconds more. It is talking about the virtues of purifying your heart, of forgiving people, of removing any shahna in order to be forgiven. And by the way, this is not only concerning the middle of Sha'ban. There are some ahadith have been narrated with regards to Mondays and Thursdays, on which our deeds will be presented before Allah the Almighty. Then in some ahadith, that Allah the Almighty on Thursday, if people are fighting or having an issue for a worldly reason, Allah the Almighty will say, أرجئوا هذين حتى يصطلحا. Postpone these two until they reconcile and make peace amongst themselves, encouraging us to love one another, encouraging us to pardon and forgive one another. That is a message that we should really get. Trust me, this is the first time to read that the page is full of questions about the middle of Sha'ban, whether the day or the night. That's another question from Sister Jamila Bibi, is saying, is it permissible to carry out the rituals of Nisf Sha'ban as practiced by many masajid here, like the Nafil prayer in congregation and reading 3 times Surah Yasin? I said that is not prescribed, and we should not attend something like that. If a person wants to pray by himself, by herself, want to recite Quran, any chapter of the Quran at any time, that is permissible. But we have to be careful with innovating by specifying a certain manner, a certain number of times, certain recitations at a certain time, and prescribing this as if it is a prophetic tradition. The Prophet ﷺ said, follow and do not innovate. It is as simple as that. Last question before we wrap it up for today's program of Ask Huda is about divorcing one's wife after the marriage contract has been concluded and before consummating the marriage. What would be the rules, regulations, and the consequence of this decision? Allah the Almighty says in Surah Al-Baqarah, in this regard, if you divorce your wife after you got married and before you touch them, من قبل أن تمسوهن أو تفرضوا لهن فريضة. I believe it is ayah number 237 of Surah Al-Baqarah. أو تفرضوا وقد فرضتم لهن فريضة فنصف ما فرضتم إلا أن يعفون أو يعفو الذي بيده عقدة النكاح. Very interesting reference. So that is the first ruling concerning divorcing one's wife after processing the marriage contract and before consummating the marriage. So half the dowry will be due, whether the dowry which is paid upfront or the deferred amount. As long as you have named the dowry or you agree to a certain amount of dowry. إلا أن يعفون أو يعفو الذي بيده عقدة النكاح. What if your wife, whom you got married but you did not touch, you did not consummate the marriage with her, dropped the dowry? She said, I'm not interested, I don't want it. It's yours, it's lawful for you. Similarly, if the guardian did so. What if the marriage was concluded without naming a dowry? then we resort to what is known as mahrul mithl, a dowry of a girl in her caliber, family status, education, beauty, perhaps her cousin, a girl similar to her in the family, in the neighborhood. And the person who will decide that is the legal court or the judge who will decide if they differ concerning the dowry. Is there any iddah for a woman who's divorced after the marriage contract has been concluded and before consummating the marriage? There is no iddah whatsoever. Why not? Because the iddah is to verify that she's not pregnant and she's not been touched by this man, which means soon as she's divorced, she is perfectly legal to marry another person with the same procedures, requirements of the consent of the guardian, the consent of the girl, the dowry and the shuhud, and the marriage contract, and all of that. That if the divorce happened before consummating the marriage and without having khalwatun shar'iyya, they did not move in together, even if they did not have sexual contact. If they moved in together and they locked the door behind themselves, that is considered as khalwa, and they will be treated as if they have fully married. And in this case, the ahkam will be different. Brothers and sisters, by that we come to the end of today's edition of your program Ask Huda. Until next time, I leave you all in the care of Allah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Your mercy is what I beseech, keeping my heart